similar to like just general training equipment as well, then, wasn't
it? Yeah.
But then it's like I said, it's hard to explain it to somebody who's not from that world.
I don't even think there's any point in arguing with somebody who, like try and discern the difference to somebody who doesn't live between an Alico bar and just any bar that they've used in the gym. Like one's £1,000 and one probably costs 50 quid or something like that.
Yeah.
Like if they don't appreciate the difference just by telling them, they're probably not going to appreciate the difference after you try to explain.
No, very true. Yeah.
It's like we just talked about jiu-jitsu mats as well, weren't we?
Yeah.
Like when you step on the mat, you can just feel the difference, can't you? Or versus like, I've never tried with them, I never would want to try them, but like those 10mm thick jigsaw mats.
Oh.
Imagine doing some takedowns on that. You may as well go and play on the road.
just play out some like just some wood slates and just roll on that.
Yeah, just like what is it? It's tatami, isn't it? Like the old school Japanese stuff. Just lay down some fucking bamboo and go nuts. Practice your.
I don't get how they used to do that though back in the day. Fair play to them though, like.
That's why we're all pussies now, isn't it?
Yeah. They really like learning how to fall. It's like they really learn how to fall.
Yeah. If you get taken down on normal mats and you've got a shitty break fall, like you're probably going to get away with it at most times because the mats are decent, aren't you? But if you're getting put down onto concrete and you can't break fall, like goodbye shoulder, herniated disc in your neck.
Goodbye back.
Yeah, goodbye back. Which is why I always be afraid of a judo player in a street fight.
Yeah.
Because you're probably wearing, like people say, gears and functional.
If someone's in a business suit, they've got two great colours there.
Or like this time of year, if you've got a thick coat on, you're going through the air, going for a ride.
It's like I used to hear the story as well. Do you know the old catch wrestlers doing outside the mines? Sort of like they do it on the gravel flooring outside of the mines. It'd be sort of like just the winner takes all best wages kind of match.
I don't even like scuffing my knee. Even if I'm in the gym, I'll put a mat down so I can do, if I need to do kneeling press ups. I don't want to start grappling somebody outside my collar.
Like, I think like the worst kind of injury that you get from the mats is like mat burn, like from shooting, or even like turf toe, where you sort of go the wrong direction, your toe sort of stays, you sort of going, oh no, that's really bad. It's like, well, these guys have got gravel burns in the back from getting choked.
Yeah. And everybody's wondering why all the Dagestani wrestlers are absolute monsters.
Yeah.
Probably because they're not training on super soft flush.
Same with like Yoel Romero with his wrestling. Like, I was listening to Joe Rogan and I think they were talking about him and sort of like an old Cuban, like the old Cuban wrestling team. And when they had like stronger links with Russia, and apparently there was like some genetic experiments to try and develop the perfect athlete, and they were sort of alluding to Yoel being part of or being a product.
I don't believe that. That sounds like bullshit already. I don't believe that those traps are anything but shrugs.
Yeah.
No, I've listened to the same point. Most of it sounded like wrestling prison.
Yeah,
didn't it? And you got better food.
Oh no, that was a more recent episode.
More recent one.
Yeah, where he was just sort of alluding to a story that I think you'd ever heard or they were talking about, where like there was these just experiments to try and create the perfect athlete to then go in and dominate the Olympics, to almost bypass the doping stuff, because it's getting harder and harder to like dope legally.
So somebody else pissing you.
Yeah. Tell you what episode it was. It was the Luke Thomas episode with the journalist.
Ah, right, okay. So it wasn't the one with Yoel Romero and Joey Diaz?
No, not that one, no. Well, that one was a really good listen. But yeah, it was the one with recent one with the journalist, and they were talking about I think they were just talking about how like where doping's going to go and genetic mutations and things like that. And then they sort of touched on that, about alluding to like Yoel Romero could have come from this sort of product where they were, I think, genetically, before they were even children, just bring them up.
It's when you start seeing clones coming out that you want to worry.
Oh yeah.
Just like 15 Khabibs.
You look exactly like Khabib Nurmagomedov from from back in the day.
Or like a tall black version of Khabib that looks like John Jones with Khabib's face and
Khabib's beard of no moustache. What is that about? Like, it's probably my ignorance.
It's a religious thing, isn't it?
Oh, is it the moustache?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's the well, I'm completely talking uneducated here, but I believe it's a religious thing.
Ah,
yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, because it's a lot of the sort of fighters from that camp.
I think it's a religious thing. I think they're Muslims, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I believe it's a religious thing, although I don't know exactly what the reasoning is.
Yeah.
I'm probably speaking a bit uneducated and out of turn with it, but as far as my understanding is, it's a
yeah.
thing.
And if anybody listening knows what it is, let us know, because I'd love to know. Like, I'll probably go and Google after this, but if you've got any more insight, like, I'd love to know, because something that I've always seen and I've been like, it's not really my style. That like I like having the top lip sort of.
Unless you look like a Dagestani guy, though, or you are Muslim, if you're just trying to pull that off and you're a regular white guy, you just look Amish.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I
think I just need bigger collies, to be fair.
I think like that hard knock school of training, though, like growing up, has got to, you look at the mental gamesmanship of those people who get to the top level and compare it to, like, not necessarily people who've had an easier ride to it, but I certainly don't think a lot of people in Western countries are having that harder growing up and upbringing to get to the top of the sport. It's almost like dog eat dog to get to that, isn't it? And that's what I was talking about the Yoel Romero, and saying it was like wrestling prison. He was saying like the best guys get the best food, they get more food, they get better sleeping conditions and stuff like that.
Can you imagine it sort of being like an almost fast-paced Darwinism of evolution, sort of essentially the strongest will survive.
Yeah.
And if you have an off day, you might end up right at the bottom of the pecking order, and you've got to work your way back up. And if you've not got the grains for it, then you're not going to survive.
There's an argument for both in, like, even clubs, clubs in England or whatever, isn't it? England, America. I think a lot of sports and a lot of kids' sports are getting watered down to, like, everybody gets a trophy, participation levels and stuff like that. And the reality of the situation is that if you want to get better at something, you need that competition, and you don't just get better from participating. It's not participation trophies for everybody. If you want to do something special with it and be a world champion, you need that sort of pushing and spurring on.
Oh yeah, like I 100% agree with that sort of school of thought. 'Cause I remember reading, might have been a meme or like one of those like infographics on Instagram. It was years and years ago, about an NFL player whose kids come home with participation trophies and participation ribbons, and you took it off them and been like, you're not getting participation trophies if you want to be good at sport.
Yeah.
It's top 3. Like, you come home with a first, second or third medal, and nothing else. And to a degree, I agree with that. But at the same time, there's got to be an age cap for that. Because if you're trying to get children interested in sport, you can't tell a 4-year-old that they're just trying to start to learn to love the sport, that winning or nothing. But then at the same time, when they get into sort of an age where they understand competition and they're getting a bit more competitive and they're beyond the stage of learning to enjoy it and they're actually enjoying it and wanting to participate, being like, okay, now we're getting rid of the participation trophies.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've not got kids, but I can imagine if I was a kid and I received a participation trophy, I'd just throw it in the bin. Like,
it's fair. I had a few when I was a kid and I used to love them.
Yeah.
But then I wasn't competitive until I actually left, until I might have been about 18, 19, and it didn't give me a competitive edge.
Right.
Because
I've always been the opposite.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, I've been a competitive little bastard since I was a kid. And if I would have got a participation trophy, I wouldn't have, maybe I wouldn't have thrown it in the bin, but I would have been like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I would have been like, yeah, participation trophy. But I don't know. I think a lot of kids as well who are on that mindset need to deal with their ego and like learn not how to be a sore loser.
True, but then again, I've heard a phrase, and it sort of resonates quite well with me, about sore losers and sort of accepting losses. And someone who doesn't accept that they've lost, I think is the right mindset for someone who wants to be a competitor, because you're not settling for what you've achieved unless it's the best.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone accepts their loss, then the phrase I actually heard was, "Show me your sore loser, and I'll show you a winner. Show me someone who accepts a loss, and I'll show you a loser."
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, in a competitive sport, that resonates perfectly. Like, if you accept your loss, then are you really going to go back to the drawing board, address what needs changing, and come back stronger? Whereas if losing strikes a chord with you, you're going to go back to the gym, back to the drawing board, change what needs changing, and then come back even stronger and better.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the difference between just being a sore loser and throwing a tantrum about it, especially as a kid, and it's even more embarrassing when you're an adult. You can basically get out of that by the time you've left high school.
Yeah.
But like using that loss to look at it and go, right, why did he beat me? Like, what's this kid better at that I should be getting better at? What can I take from them to put into my game, and maybe I can win the next time?
Yeah.
Rather than just being like, oh, I lost, rubbish, like I quit, I don't want to play anymore.
Oh yeah, that kind of sore loser.
Yeah. Those kids just end up getting bored with it anyway. It's like people who come to jiu-jitsu with big ego, thinking they're big muscly dude, and they think they're just going to come in and smash everybody around, and they get tapped up by the 60-kilo purple belt.
Yeah.
And just get destroyed by them. And then they're not humble enough to just be like, all right, okay, well, if that 60-kilo dude can do that to me, maybe if I learn what he knows,
then I can do it back to him.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas some people just go like, it's rubbish.
Yeah.
Just go to a box or whatever, something like that. Because they used to just go in there and just overwhelming people with force. But yeah, I think that's true for even adults, isn't it? You should take your losses and try and implement that into how you can get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
I think there's a few different ways to look at it though as well, isn't there? Like, because if you're not trying to do it competitively, then you don't have to take each loss as seriously, as long as you're trying to progress yourself, like, on and off the mats.
Yeah.
But I think if you just sort of accept your downfalls and don't want to address them and just want to plod through life, then for me it's sort of like, are you really going to progress to where you aspire or want to be?
Yeah.
Have you already achieved that and are just happy to not progress any further? Like,
for me, I almost don't care about losing, because I'm trying to always either train or compete against somebody who probably should beat me, because I know I'm going to take a lesson out of it.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you can get down to an open mark, like why would you want to go out of your way to go to an open mark to know that you can beat everybody there? Like, you want to go and get beat up, don't you?
Yeah.
And learn something. And maybe not, if it's an actual competition, maybe the person on the tournament that you're competing in against is going to be something that's at your level. So you're going to have that competitive drive to win it. But if you're going out your way for like an exciting super fight, or you go into open mats, like, not that you want to get beat up, but you want to be able to take a lesson from it.
oh yeah, 100%.
I probably a lot of the people that we've spoken to as well on the podcast would say that like an easy win was almost like a valueless win to them, because they didn't learn anything off the back of it. And I would say that was true as well for myself. I've always taken more away from something that I've done badly, or like there was a real problem area exposed, rather than just going in and smashing in my A game and then being like, cool, that worked.
Yeah. But then also there is benefits to that, because they could be a really good player, but your A game's just better than theirs. So you could like go in there going, oh, this is going to be a really tough match. Go in there, walk through them with relative ease, and you can be like, everything that I've just done in that camp worked brilliantly. And as long as that doesn't create complacency within the player, then I think that there's nothing wrong with an easy win, so to speak, as long as you don't sort of go away going, that was easy, that, and not take anything from it.
Well, if you look at like Gordon Ryan, let's say, for example, seems like we talk about Gordon Ryan on every podcast. But he basically just smashes everybody, doesn't he? He knows he's the best, and he goes in there with no expectation that he's going to lose or like lose and learn. It's just, I'm going to go in and I'm going to smash with whatever end game I choose to do on the day.
I think with Gordon, his losing and learning in the training room, and his competition day is just sort of being like, I'm just here to display myself. Like a casual room, got the new model coming out. Let's have a look at what I can do, because I've already ironed out all the creases in the training room. I think for plays like that, I think that's where it comes to, because he doesn't seem to be getting complacent. His pace seems to have slowed down, but I think that's more due to him developing as a player and his style changing, and also the type of matches he gets. Like 30-minute super fight, you're not going to go in there 100 miles an hour. But it would be interesting to see if he does enter the IBJJF stuff with the 10-minute time limit, with the heel hooks as well, and see how he fares with that.
Yeah, we spoke about that the other week, didn't we? It should be. It's an interesting dynamic to throw in. You heard? Did we speak about Keenan? He was talking about it, wasn't he? And he was talking about like how it unifies a bit more of the rule set, but also disperses the specialists as well from being somebody he was essentially talking about there's not going to be many people that are going to be well-rounded enough to be able to be their best at each different individual format and rule set. And he was saying that the more specialised the different branches of it get, the more people are going to focus on that one rule set and become experts in it.
But then, see, I get what you're saying with that, but I disagree with the sentiment behind it, because it's almost being like, well, we need all these different rule sets so that everyone can specialise in it, as opposed to let's just get good at grappling and prove yourself on every format. Like with boxing, for example, you've got all these different organisations that have all these different titles, but the rules are the same. So the people that are going to get to the top of the game are good boxers, not good boxers within certain rule sets. So I see it as a bit of a, is defeatist the right word? Or a defeatist attitude towards the new rules coming in, being like, oh, it's taken away from these guys. In reality, you're adding in a new set of tools for them to use and for them to win, as opposed to taking anything away from them.
I think, I don't know what exactly he was getting at when he was talking about it, but my take on it would be that, obviously the better grappler is always going to win anyway if it's a unified rule set. And you should always train all rule sets. But we know that, like, based off different tournaments or what the rule set is, people who train that rule set more frequently always have a better advantage at it. So that's not necessarily to say that the better all-rounded grappler isn't going to win on every occasion. But if people are playing, like, what's a good example? The EBI rule set is a weird example where people can kind of stall out and be experts in that one unique aspect of the end rule set, where it's like it's overtime, isn't it? So they started from that one position and they've basically trained that, and they're good enough to kind of stall out for 10 minutes of the match to take it to that and then win. Or the better grappler? Should the better grappler win, even if that's not their expertise?
So see, I've got like
boxing's completely different, isn't it? Because boxing's boxing. And then, every different what do we call them? They're what do they call the different regulating bodies?
Oh, like WBC.
I can't think what the name is for, but essentially it's a different organisation, but the rule sets are still pretty much the same, aren't they? Whereas I think it's a little bit different argument for the grappling side of it.
I get what you're saying with that, but I'd probably change my comparison then to maybe rugby. So you've got rugby union, rugby league, and I think the only split for the grappling rule set should be gi and no gi. So you've got your gi rule set, and there might be slight differences in how the points are done and the timings are done for different organisations, but I think across the board there should be some sort of unified rule set amongst gi and amongst no gi.
What about heel hooks and gi?
I don't see an issue with them, but I also can see the argument on the other side. of.
What is the argument on the other side?
Apparently, it's more dangerous because
more friction.
Well, because of the more friction, but then it also is like do more work to not get caught in it. Because the same argument could be said for, oh, we can't do arm bars there because there's more friction. It's like the knee and the leg work the same, and you're going to rotate the shoulder for some arm bars depending on how you apply it and how you rip it out. So what's the difference between applying a rotating leg lock to a rotating shoulder lock?
I'm just trying to go down the rabbit hole a little bit with this. Is the argument that it comes on quicker, there's less movement in the joint before the damage occurs? Because if you think about how much room's got happening in Kimura for it to become damaging, depending on how flexible the person's shoulder is, there's quite a lot of movement there, isn't there? And you've got to, like, if you've not done a good job of defending it, you've got more time to react or tap. I don't know, it's a question more than an opinion. I'd
agree to a certain amount there, but in the same light, there's a lot more setting up an isolation that has to go into a heel hook than a Kimura. And even like an armbar, like once the arm hits its limit, it can snap on and cause damage. Same with the knee bar, same with the toe hold. I think the only difference with a heel hook compared to most other submissions is the long-term damage and the rehabilitation side of it. But if you've trained it and you know your body, you know the joint, you're gonna know how to react to it. Like when we've rolled and someone of us gone for a heel hook, we know because we've trained them which way to rotate, which way not to go, how to stay calm. And also in the same light, unless you've got like a real vendetta against the person you're competing against, you're not really going to snap on a submission. Actually, saying that, I've seen it.
People just throw them on, don't they?
Yeah.
Because it's competition, and it's like, I've got to do it. Oh.
Yeah, to be fair, I've done that myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that back.
And not really, like, what you say.
It's not intention. Yeah.
It's just like, oh, it's there, boom.
Yeah.
Throw it on. Yeah, totally. I've seen that from a lot of people where there's no like bad intention from it, but it's just the nature of competing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's all well and good doing it like, oh, we've got you in a heel hook in training, but that's another argument too as well, isn't it? If you're not used to that immediacy of the competition speed attacks coming on, that's another element that you're not really factoring in. So how do you even train that safely in the gym? Getting that reaction speed to competition speed subs.
I reckon there'll be a way to do it. Like with the heel hook, you don't have to find the heel bite. All you got to do is just isolate the leg and rotate around it, and that's going to simulate the speed of the submission going on.
Like when you were a kid, and if you do like air guns and go like,
yeah, pew pew pew.
Yeah, ACL, MCL.
I can keep going and get the LCL and the PCL as
well. How many times have you rolled with somebody in the gi and they've started playing heel hooks with you without specifically saying so at the beginning of the round? Or you've been the other way around, you started going and gave somebody and you've got them in a heel hook and you're like, what are you doing? Or do you always say at the beginning of the round?
Do you know what? I've not actually played heel hooks in the gi yet. I think it's more so because since I started playing leg locks, I've not really done as much gi to be able to really play with it. But I've been on the receiving end of it where, like I've told you this before, I know where purple belt against black belt when I was purple belt, and this was sort of like the club that I come from. It's like, if you're gonna play leg locks in the gi, speak to your partner first. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Conversation wasn't had before the round. Past this black belt's guard, he'd inverted, grabbed the toe hold and snapped the toe hold on. And I was like, hang on, are we playing this rule set? Like, I didn't realise we'd agreed to this beforehand. Like, because in the club I'd come from, it'd always been IBJJF rule set. So you don't play legs until brown belt.
Yeah.
And then after the sort of like, right, I'm going to get back now. And I've held a personal vendetta with that.
And 8 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. I will get him back next time I roll with him. I know who it is.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Less on that one.
Yeah.
That's going to get pretty quick. I will say that I do it to every white belt that I roll with.
Fair.
But not in like a malicious way, as you said. It's an opportunity to educate both the people on both ends. The attacking and the receiving end of it.
I agree.
I think certainly when I was white and blue belt, I would have liked to have been more safely exposed to that game.
Yeah, no,
to give you more safe awareness.
I completely agree.
And even if you're not necessarily learning to go for the attacks, just like level up your defense. So that's the most important thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, one thing that I have experienced, and I think possibly needs emphasising more so with white belts and possibly some early blue belts, is don't snap leg locks or foot locks on.
Any
submission, but it seems to be more leg locks that you see less experienced players grabbing hold of and just being like, rah, I need to rip this, and just going for it. Whereas if it's like an armbar or a Kimura, you can sort of see them going like, all right, yeah, and there's more control there. But for some reason, it's just thrown on with leg locks, which doesn't need to be done. Like, you can throw the setup on, just don't apply the pressure with that big throw.
Yeah, I think part of that is down to just like muscle control and muscle memory for it, isn't it? Because like you could do a heel hook or armbar and go right up until that last millimeter where you get the tap at 100% speed and then stop, or just like do the last bit really slow. But because somebody who's just learning the technique doesn't know or have that fine-tuned motor movement of it, because they've not done enough reps with it, it's just like, where's the end? I don't know, let's find out. And then you get injured. It's why rolling oftentimes, as you could probably get more injured rolling as a white or a lower blue belt than you would do rolling with the more experienced players, brown and black, just because there's less sensitivity for where that end range on submissions is. And oftentimes it's just accelerated through rather than accelerated to. Yeah. And that's a big thing on like things that you talked about and we talked about on catch and release on subs is a big one. Like, you don't have to get the finish every time.
Oh no.
But I think it is important to get a good amount of finishes so that you know what it feels like and where the submission's actually going to happen and you're going to get the tap.
Yeah, but I think as well, like, showing that like rush, like getting used to that, like rushing to rather than rushing through. Needs to, because like everyone's got different mobility in each joint. So like with say rotational shoulder ones, you want to rush to the grips and the isolation, and then really slow down the application. Whereas with an armbar, you want to rush to the break and the release, and then once you're here, that's when you can start to slow down. So I don't know what point I was trying to get to there, but I agree with what you're saying. I think, but like I said, I think everyone just needs more reps at most likely at that point, don't they?
Yeah. But I think what you're saying is like, and it's like the mistake that people sometimes make with flow rolling as well, isn't it? It's like, do you 90% of the thing that you're trying to intend to do with full intention, and then at the point where the submission can happen, so like once you've broken the grips, then that bit there should be slow.
Yeah.
Because it's safe to go up to there as quick as you can and break the grip. But then once you're coming through with it, and it's the same on, maybe it's a bit more difficult to do, like maybe a guillotine, but a rear naked choke, you can lock it all up tight, but you're not going to then snap it all on and sit it in tight. It's a slow squeeze, it's a slow pull on the arm bar. Kimuras, everything, every rep, every submission is the same, isn't it?
Speaking of flow roll as well, what's your view on them? Like, what rule set do you tend to play with when you're doing a flow roll?
So to be honest, this is one that I struggled with early on. I was like, when it'd be a flow round, I think I got to the mistake of thinking it's not really doing anything properly and just kind of flopping around a bit and like doing daft stuff that you wouldn't do in a round. But the better understanding I got of what it should be, for me, it was basically be playful with it, but like have a proper fight and then don't do any subs.
Yeah.
So basically just try and win every position when it's your turn to attack, but then also give your opponent time to do the same as well, but just never finish. That would be what I think and the way that I play it now. So kind of that a playful spar, a playful roll with that catch and release mentality.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, because I had similar issue with when I was learning at the start, like on misunderstanding what a flow roll was. I always imagined it being like just moving like a sloth, really slowly, just loosen everything up, and it's sort of like you're not actually warming anything up. You're not doing any movements properly. There's no intention with what you're doing, so you're not actually warming the mind or the body up.
Yeah.
Whereas, as we got more educated on it, I've kind of gone to more. I'm gonna try and move at a certain pace so it emulates some sort of round, but there's going to be a little less pressure, a little bit more playful. There'll still be some pinch there, and I'm still going to try and isolate and find positions, but it's going to be catch, release, transition, and I'm looking for as many transitions and submission entries as I can. And then in my head, I was trying to count to a certain number. It may be like try and guesstimate a minute, or if there's a clock on the wall, it'll be like 2 minutes, and then I'll ease the gas off a little bit and let my partner take over if it's been very one-sided.
Yeah.
But if it's been quite equal, I'm happy to keep that sort of faster pace for it for the whole duration of the round.
Yeah, and if you do that with your regular training partners, they know the drill as well, don't they?
Yeah.
But the difficulty comes in like where you're doing it with somebody who's a lot less experienced, or like maybe you're the less experienced person and you get confused about what a flow roll is. And it might be difficult if you're doing it and maybe let's say you only know 1 or 2 submissions and you might not necessarily even know fully how to get to there from every position. But sometimes what I'll say when I'm going with somebody who's really new is like, right, what thing do you know? I just want you to try and get to that thing every opportunity that you can.
Yeah.
And play around with wind guard on how do you need to get to my back to be able to do your rear naked choke thing, that's the one thing, or if it's an arm bar, how can you get to mount me? And then I'll put them in a different position, and then they'll play their escapes that maybe they know, or just intuitively, and just their primary goal should be do those things that but the better you get, the more arsenal you've got. Yeah. Like the more options you've got. So that's where I guess it becomes more creative and playful, the more experienced you become just because you've got a bigger arsenal of tools.
Yeah, well, like to be creative and playful, you need to have a good understanding of the fundamentals. But like going back to what you said about not having that many tools to sort of play with for the less experienced players, that's something that I do hear quite often is sort of like, oh, I only know one submission, or I only know this, that. It's like, play with those then, like not in like a sort of short, sharp, just play with those. Sort of, if you're not sure what to do what you know.
Yeah.
And the more you relax, the more things you'll see and the more things you'll recognize.
Yeah.
As opposed to worrying about, one thing. It's not going to be very productive for my partner. It's not going to be this. It's not going to be that. It's like, have a change of perspective on it and be like, okay, I know how to do this. I'm going to get absolutely mint at doing this and find different entries for this from as many different places as I can to just sort of get that creativity and that spark going in the mind. So it becomes a little bit easier to learn more.
No, totally. It's like just focusing on the one thing and trying to get better at it is obviously a way to accelerate your learning.
Yeah.
The other thing for improving your learning, particularly with flow rolling as well, if you don't understand what it is supposed to be, is don't just sit out a lot to watch, but try and watch better people doing it.
Yeah.
Or even people who are the same level as you, or maybe a little bit better. you don't just have to watch the black belts and think that's the only way to do it, because the reality is you're probably not going to be able to do it like that. But being able to detach from the situation and see it, like I always give the analogy, in third person, rather than being like a horse with the blinders on. You kind of see tunnel vision when you're doing it, aren't you? Especially if you're panicking, you've only got one thing that you want, you're trying to achieve. But if you can kind of step back and sit at the edge of the mat, maybe you've done one floor roll, you sit out for one and watch how it's done. But don't just watch it, like try and see what's going on and think, where was I? Oh, I was there, I can do that. And that's how I can get to there. And the other thing is as well, like you said, and it's often a thing that you hear from people either in the first couple of sessions or the first couple of months, they're very nervous about, I don't know whether it's about their ability or like their perceived lack of ability. If you go with a more experienced player, even if it's somebody from blue belt upwards, or certainly higher, they've rolled with a brand new person thousands of times. They do not care that you don't know anything, and are probably more likely going to encourage you. Like, just don't worry about it, because how many times have you, as a black belt, rolled with a brand new person who doesn't know what they're doing? There's years of it, isn't it? Like, you don't care, you're not judging them.
Oh, not at all. Like, we're all on the understanding that we're all there to learn. And the more experienced player, like I'm sure you've done it as well, where you sort of be like, okay, you'll present them with a game, as opposed to being like, we're going to play this game. It's going to be like, okay, I'm going to stay on my back and you got to try and get past my legs, and we'll just work on that today. Now, that's presenting them with a game and a challenge that's functional to jiu-jitsu, but it's not overwhelming them with so many things going on that they're going to get just sort of shot back and not want to do it. So I think always be willing and open to jumping in with the experienced players if you're inexperienced, and if you're unsure and uneasy about sort of rolling, and let them know and they'll talk you through it. That's one thing I always try and get the guys at High to do when we did have someone new in. Guide, like, just get the more experienced players. This person's been here, they've been here for a couple of weeks. If that's not met them before anyway, and being like, could you just guide them for a roll? And I've not had someone say no.
That sounds like a nice service to offer, that, doesn't it? A guided roll. If you are that new person as well, you're probably going to hear, relax.
A lot. And breathe.
So if you hear that just means stop spazzing out and just think about what you're being asked to do. Or like try and slow down what you're trying to do a little bit.
But
relax and breathe.
Breathe.
So like it's not to say that you're doing anything wrong, but you're probably just panicking a bit. Like the more experienced player that you're with can tell you that you're just panicking and you're trying to like not do anything with technique, and you just, I don't know, the wrong intensity.
Don't forget as well, the person that you're rolling with, no matter what stage or experience they're at, they've been exactly where you are. They know exactly what you're experiencing. They may have forgot certain details like of the emotions of things, but they've been exactly in your shoes. So there's going to be a little bit of comfort within that knowledge as well.
It's a safe space.
Yeah, it is a safe space.
That seems like quite a nice positive note to end on.
It does, doesn't it?
Probably the most positive note we've had so far.
There's been no rant about rule sets or athlete ownership. I feel like we've done a misservice now.
We kind of had a little bit of a rant, didn't we, about different rule sets from people. True.
I think we'll probably we'll save the rants for a while, let them build up a little bit.
If everyone's in lockdown now, I think they need calming down and don't need aggravating. You don't need to see people out writing in the streets about heel hooks.
No, definitely not. And if you're in lockdown and you're stuck for ideas on what to do to keep yourself entertained, drop us a message. Like, we'll guide you to the learning resources that we've got on our YouTube channel. Like, I'm sure we'll guide you into some sort of help where just something to keep you entertained over the time. Like, we're trying to sort of push a positive message with grappling, although we do, well, more me than Bon Michaels and the little ranty side of things. But
That's the best part about the podcast.
yeah. But yeah, get in touch. We want the jiu-jitsu community to come out of this stronger. So yeah, get in touch, and thanks for listening. But make sure you hit the subscribe buttons, like buttons, anything else.
Yeah, if you're struggling for ideas as well, hit us up on the social media. There's plenty of content out there to keep you occupied, whether that's our stuff or anything else. YouTube is absolutely full of learning resources, and to that vein as well, if there's anything that you've seen out there that you want us to talk about or discuss, let us know in the comments or drop us a message on the social media. And we can bring that up in conversation on the podcast, or maybe cover it in future on technique breakdown. But yeah, there's loads out there, so kind of support one another, and even though we can't train, stay in touch. And
before we do finish,
go on.
That image that you sent me, that James sent you.
Has he done it?
The one that you sent me.
The
Atlas.
Oh yeah.
We didn't mention it.
We didn't mention it.
No.
I don't know how he's going to go. Find that one.
I think we'll have to post it up on the page.
We'll post it up on the page, and then you know what this is going to mean? That this is going to mean me having to buy a black singlet. The only thing that's going to come out of this is me having to buy a black singlet. Well, isn't it?
I think that's what's going to come.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, go online on the social media and see that then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll put it up.
Yeah, we'll put it up. But yeah, no, thank you for listening, and I'd like to thank IDPO. I've got the new hoodie on, absolutely comfy. I'd like to thank MBR, and go follow Flow, follow Hive, and hit us up on the socials.
Absolutely. See you on the internet.
See you soon.